Morning. It is Tuesday, September 7th, and this is the Story County Board of Supervisors consultation meeting this morning. So we'll call that meeting to order. And then I know we do have a presentation by staff. I'm not seeing anyone on Zoom yet, but I do think we should probably continue to have that presentation in case anyone zooms in or if they want to review the recording at a later date.
Well, I can see. Good morning.
Good morning, Leah.
I just have a very short presentation to share with the board. And then if anyone does join in or wants to watch a recording at a later time, I'll be available for answering questions as well. My contact information is actually at the end of this presentation. As the board knows, today is a consultation meeting with affected taxing entities for the fiscal year 2023 Urban Renewal Area Program process. There are three components to the Urban Renewal Area Program that Story County has in place. One is the plan, the Urban Renewal Area, Story County Urban Renewal Area. The second is actually in the Code of Ordinances, that's Chapter 8, Urban Renewal, and that is the part of the pie, I guess you could call it, that establishes the properties from which the revenue is generated. So that lists the parcels from which the revenue comes. And the last is the economic development process and policies, and that sets forth, just as it says, the policies for the board to consider when approving applications and funding applications in the process. So next three slides go through those elements quickly. I just kind of really touched on each. But again, the plan itself was first adopted in November 2011. So we're 10 years into it, believe it or not. Actually, about $1.6 million to date have been awarded through the Urban Renewal Area Program. That does not include projects such as Dakin's Lake and Tedesco Environmental Learning Center corridor. Those are all county projects. These are through the jurisdictions through this process. Second one is, again, as I said, the Chapter 8 from the Code of Ordinances, that is the chapter from which that defines the parcels from which the revenues are generated. As new turbines, wind turbines specifically, or other properties have come online, through this time of year, Story County staff would be coming to the board to amend the Code of Ordinances to add those parcels. We haven't not done that for a few years, and we're not proposing that this year as well. And then the last is the policies and procedures. Generally, the board looks at these each spring, as you well know, as we kick off the process. And these were last modified in May, and then again in June to address the time frame for this year. This year, we'd had 3 applications submitted. You've already heard from the city of Maxwell. And I did circle the city of Maxwell's request. This information is based on the original submittal, so I wanted to hold true to the process. The city representatives did share with the board when they presented a couple weeks ago that they wish to do this only in one phase. So rather than broken down over 2 years, it would be basically a one and done. So the request is still $700,000, but over 1 year. They did say if the board was willing, they would accept multiple years too. But again, I want to hold true to the process. But we have applications from Roland, Maxwell, and then the city of Collins. And then the process, just quickly, today is a consultation meeting with affected taxing entities. So taxing entities that are located in areas where those 3 applications receive notice of today's meeting. They can zoom in or join in person. They also did receive a packet that has today's notice, but then also the current Urban Renewal Area Plan and also the applications as were received. The process then the next would be for the board to finish the presentations through the applicants and then start deliberating on amendments to the plan. At this point, though, I'm going to stop so you can hear from County Attorney, Assistant County Attorney Ethan Anderson, so he can update you on some other items that do affect this whole process going forward.
Compensation.
Yes, thank you, Board. So what began as a relatively routine property tax assessment appeal turns out to be anything but routine. And this is Story Wind LLC versus Story County Board of Review. The case number is CVCV 052319. I want to speak in generalities since we've discussed this in closed session, the legal strategy and implications of the appeal here. But generally speaking, this would affect 75 different parcels. And these are the windmills that are TIF'd. And if the Story Wind LLC is successful in their appeal, this would be a pretty severe consequences financially for the county to absorb. And as you consider these projects, spending money from the urban renewal, it should cause some reflection on the money may not be there if we're unsuccessful in the appeal. Their claim is based upon legal interpretation of a code section from the Department of Revenue. And we have a different interpretation from them, but this is a question for the court to decide who's got the right interpretation. And while I can state I believe we are correct, judges don't always agree with what I have to say. So I think without getting into too many specifics, there's a potential loss to the county. And it will be a rather large loss if the owner removes some of this value and didn't replace it. It'd be, I don't know how much detail to get into numbers, but it would be a rather severe loss.
When is the next event?
So our trial date is set for next June. I requested that trial date with the opposing counsel, Grant Collar. The idea was, unlike other property tax assessment appeals, this one doesn't necessarily depend on a factual dispute. It's more of a legal dispute, interpretation of a key phrase, substantial improvement. So discussing with the other attorney, he requested, or we discussed filing a motion for summary judgment to resolve that legal issue ahead of any discovery, timely, expensive discovery. And so if we can resolve that summary judgment before the end of the year or early in the new year, we wouldn't have to have a trial. But suffice to say that he didn't say, but with the amount of money at stake, the amount of money Story Wind is committed to this, I would imagine they would appeal anything to the Supreme Court viable. And I imagine we would appeal an adverse ruling to Supreme Court viable. So yes, this could potentially drag out for a few years. But it's important to remember that they are appealing the assessment year 2021, so that the tax hit would be in I don't know, by 2023, 22-23 tax year.
Fiscal starting July 1, 22, not two fiscal years.
Yes.
One fiscal year. Okay, got it. Just wanted to double check what you were saying. So it's fiscal year 23, which starts July 1, 22. Thank you.
Yeah, so even if the litigation is resolved adversely, years from now, it'll go back to, they're appealing the 2021 year. So then it'll go back and change those figures.
So there would be a potential of having to.
Yes,
reimburse.
if they stacked up, yeah. We're not alone in this litigation. There is another county litigating it. And we've been discussing their efforts, and they've been curious about our efforts. So this issue is strangely of statewide concern, and it could have big implications for other wind farms and other energy companies that have invested in wind farm technology. Yeah, for people who are curious, if people are listening or watching, I mean, the case is filed, as I said, in CV 052319, Story Wind LLC versus Story County Board of Review, and you can get the file from the clerk of court and draw your own conclusions. But I provide the board my conclusions in closed session, and I'll stick to those conclusions.
So CV 052319.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Two in there.
Did too.
And Ethan, you said, so if you do the summary judgment, then you wouldn't necessarily go to trial then in 2022, just because I don't understand the whole legal process.
Yeah, that's correct. The summary judgment and the case right there,
Yeah,
with the judge ruling in our favor or not.
But that can still be appealed,
That can still be appealed.
so it doesn't end it.
right.
Either way, it's.
Yeah, my sense of this case is, like I said, there's so much money, potential money at stake. Story Wind LLC, which is owned by NextEra Energy, a Florida company, has engaged a Des Moines firm, a well-known Des Moines firm, and it seems that they're prepared to spend a lot of money pursuing even more money, which is the way things work, I suppose.
And they're looking at, again, it's a their legal interpretation of, for the Department of Revenue. I just want to make sure I'm clear with you.
Yeah, so there's a Department of Revenue memo, 2019, that said substantial improvement would allow wind energy providers to reset the schedule. The schedule is reflected in the ordinance that the county adopted. It's a 20-year schedule. And I think it's Iowa Code 427B. Point 26. And that's a Story County Ordinance number 179. Assessment of wind energy conversion property approved on October 16th, 2007. So it's a 20-year schedule from 2007. So we believe that were substantial improvement not found in the text of the statute, departs from the legislative intent, departs from the previous memos of the Department of Revenue. So we think we have an argument to make, and of course the appellant has an argument to make as well. The court will decide who's right.
The term substantial improvement is in the Department of Revenue memo, but not in the code.
That's correct. So it becomes a legal issue of who gets to interpret the code section. And we believe that the courts are the appropriate person to interpret that code section. And those are arguments that we'll be making in our summary judgment motion.
So you're saying if you submitted a filing motion for summary judgment, how long do those usually take to get answered?
So yeah, it'd be I have to double check the rules. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think they have 30 days to respond to our summary judgment motion.
Have any idea when you're gonna be able to bring that one?
We're working on it now. Working on it with one other attorney in our office, and so we're tag teaming it. And we're preparing it now. What we're waiting on is parties are required under the discovery rules to submit initial disclosures. And those are due September 10th. We submitted ours last week. We're waiting on their initial disclosures. Once we have those, we can begin reviewing what they have to work on our argument.
So I think maybe by the end of the calendar. But then
We would
again,
like to have it filed before the end of the calendar year, yes. With a resolution, probably one way or another, early next year. Well before the trial date.
But as you said, either side could appeal that. So looking at the summary judgment and saying, oh, we won on that doesn't necessarily, how long would you have to appeal a motion for summary or a summary judgment?
Same appeal deadline as anything. I think it's 20 or 30 days. It's probably 20 days.
So,
It's hard not for us to consider this potentially going to the Supreme Court of Iowa. And
Yeah.
to further complicate matters, the legislature may decide to weigh in the interim, so it could complicate matters further.
They could, oftentimes they stay away from something that's already in litigation, but they have at times understood when there's litigation going on as well, so.
Yeah, I would urge them to stay out of it, but again, I'm not, they don't answer to me.
so that's a lot to weigh out.
The Department of Revenue, their memo, does it reference like the legislation, like the legislation number or the code section?
It's a little over a page. And it does, I'm not sure on that. I have to get back to it. Off the top of my head, it does reference the code sections. It does reference IRS rules, but it doesn't. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
And I didn't print out all the materials from my file. Else the file would be far too big. A lot of it's electronically on the computer.
So one thing to note too is this process is really, the entire process is impacted by this, obviously. I'm stating the obvious. But as the board well knows, any debt needs to be certified by December 1st. If you were to award any applications this year. And that's with knowing the potential financial implications of what the future may hold. But that being said, the board also has about 4.5 in debt that you've already certified for projects. That we are on 10-year loan payment loan payment schedules. So that will not go away. So that, unfortunately, the process is such that we accepted applications, and an option for the board to consider would just be to suspend the program this year. knowing you already have the indebtedness that you're responsible for the past projects and the past approved projects, which are already in the pipeline and may not yet be constructed, because you've awarded those. And then revisit this next spring. And as such, that you've only heard from one community. And that was the largest ask by far. But that would be something I could bring back to the board in an official board session for formal action. But then give the applicants a heads up as well. And that would be what I would recommend doing, given the timing of the situation.
Well, it's certainly disappointing news to hear that our financial situation with the TIF dollars could change so drastically. I thank you for bringing this to us. It definitely is something that we should consider doing. So I would, for the other supervisors as well, but I would ask that we put on the agenda, the next agenda.
I guess the question I would have too, this would be like a question. I'm thinking all in the best of worlds that, you get your summary judgment by the end of the year, we hear back by the end of January or beginning of February. Whatever side's going to appeal, probably potentially decisions. So we're looking at, we'll just say March for now. Do we have an idea of how long before a Supreme Court could potentially rule? Again, I'm looking at the very best of scenarios.
Years.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I think current experience in the Supreme Court, we have the Grant 5 at the Supreme Court right now. And that was done earlier this year, back in January, February. And the oral arguments are believed for this month, end of September. So once oral arguments are completed, then they make a decision within a few weeks to a month. So based on that timeline, 10 months. So if we get it in March next year, it could be 10 months from then at the earliest, probably, putting us in the 2023 January.
and I'm just thinking is if you move to suspend the program for this year, the implications it has on the process for next year, and just, just wondering the length, potential length of time.
It might very well be both fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24.
Yeah, and that sounds like it would make the most sense, because we're not gonna have an answer, likely even in the best of possible timelines.
Yeah, I think my advice would be, my recommendation would be make that decision next year, because there's always an outside chance that the court rules so definitively on a summary judgment motion that it's done there,
Sure.
one way or another. And I may be back here saying, well, don't appeal because we've lost soundly, or appeal because it was a close call. Or maybe we prevailed and they decide not to appeal. I mean, that's a possibility. I think unlikely, but it's a possibility.
So I will work with Ethan too in preparation for next week, but then also give those 3 applicants a heads up before next week even, so they're not really caught off guard. And because I'll be, given the nature of the situation, this is the first time that we've spoken about it.
Really disappointing. I also have a great concern of in the county, greater risk as well.
the presentation today?
No,
There was, are you referring to one of the communities?
Yes.
Yes, so we did, but that, Lean contacted them on Friday, I believe. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Need a motion to adjourn.
Like,
We've been seconded.